I want to tell you the story of David and Goliath. This famous story can be found in the first book of Samuel, which is in the first part of the Bible, which is called the Old Testament. This is the time before Jesus was born. At the time of our story, King Saul was the king of the Israelites, the Jewish peoples. The Israelites were being attacked by a tribe of peoples called the Philistines. The Israelites were not doing very well in this war and were particularly terrified by a giant of a man called Goliath. Goliath had challenged any man in the Israelite army to fight him. This had now gone on for 40 days and no Israelite had succeeded in killing Goliath. There was an old man during these dreadful times who was called Jesse, and he had 8 sons. His youngest boy was called David. Jesse had sent his other 7 sons to fight with King Saul in the Israelite army, but David was too young to go in the army and fight. So Jesse kept him at home and put him in charge of looking after the family flock of sheep. One day, Jesse sent for David and said to him, "Son, I want you to take this special food to your 7 brothers in the army and bring me back news of how they are. I'm worried about them." David left the flock of sheep, collected the special food and walked to where the Israelite army was camped. He found his 7 brothers and gave them the food their father had sent. He told them the news. They told him the news about the giant of Goliath and how he was challenging the Israelite soldiers to fight him. The boys were clearly terrified of Goliath. After he had listened carefully to everything, David said to his brothers, "I'm not afraid to fight this Goliath. Where is he?" As you can imagine, the boys just laughed at him and said things like, How can you fight Goliath? You're only a little squit of a boy." But somehow King Saul got to hear about David and sent for him. King Saul said to David, young man, I've heard you're willing to fight the giant Goliath. How can that be? You're only a youngster used to minding sheep." David bravely said to King Saul, "I'm not afraid of the giant Goliath. When bears and lions try to attack my sheep, I attack them with my bare hands. I am not afraid because I know that I have God on my side." King Saul was amazed at David's bravery and impressed by his belief in God. "Well, very well, young man, you can fight the giant Goliath. You can have my armour to protect you." But as you can imagine, it was far too heavy for David to wear. In fact, when he tried it on, he could hardly walk. "I don't need this stuff, King Saul. I know I have God on my side. I will have my shepherd's crook, 5 small stones in my bag, my sling and my faith to protect me. I will kill the giant Goliath." David went back to where the armies of the Israelites and the Philistines were gathered. He called out to the giant Goliath, "I'll fight you, Goliath. Come on, I'm not afraid of you." Well, you can imagine. Goliath just laughed at him. You're only a little boy with a shepherd's crook and a sling. Not even any armour to protect you." David said nothing. He just took a smooth stone out of his bag, fitted it into his sling and aimed it at Goliath. The stone hit Goliath straight in the middle of the forehead, and he fell down dead. David went up to Goliath, took Goliath's own sword and chopped off his head. So the Israelites were saved from the Philistines by a young boy who had a big faith in God. Wow! I chose to tell you this story this morning because we all feel like little people at the moment, because we're fighting the coronavirus. We can't go to school, see our friends, and we may know people who are sick. If we have a faith in God like David, he will help us to be big people, to get up every day and get through these difficult times. Now, if you want to say a prayer, do join me. Dear Jesus, we remember the faith of David and how he killed the giant Goliath and saved the Israelites. Help us to have a big faith, to get up every morning, to do the best we can and keep well. Amen. Now I'm going to challenge you. Can you collect 5 smooth stones just like David's? And for each stone, think about a reason you have for trusting in God when you're faced with a big challenge. I'll help you out with my first stone. I've been praying for one of the mums in our junior church who's a nurse, and she's been very poorly with the virus. She's getting slowly better now. If you want to read about David and Goliath for yourself, you can find it in the first book of Samuel, chapter 16 in the Old Testament.